Alright, it is Sunday Fun Day. Welcome back to the Ram Revival. Making good progress here on the 408. We got the hood off, which I don't think we ever made a video on that, but the hood is off. Bummed help. Mom, sister, and nephew once again. But we're getting close to being able to hook this thing up to the gantry crane and lower it into the truck. Now, the thing that's stopping me, number one, I need to go through and detail the engine bay again. I've done it several times. It's dusty here. You know, it is what it is. It's much easier to clean when there's no motor than when there is a motor. So we're going to knock that out. But before I do that, there's another glaring thing we need to do, and it's tied in with what you're looking at and this right here. This is a seal. It's going to go in behind the torque converter. I'm replacing this at the recommendation of the machine shop. I assume they would know better than me. But essentially their logic was this is something that's just good practice to do when you pull a motor, because especially with the way the truck is designed, with the cab forward design, when the motor came out, you know, it was like a pendulum. That's why we rigged up all the plywood and everything, especially using the cherry picker. You know, the gantry crane was not present. It was not part of our shop at that point in time. So we've upgraded equipment since then. That said, the damage could have been done. It's not like it's leaking right now or anything, but they said, you know, by the time you get the new motor hooked up, it's probably going to be. So we're going to run with that assumption, and instead of just pulling the torque converter out to get access to this thing, rip that seal out and drive this one in, we have to make sure that we seat the torque converter properly. I also realize I've got a battery charging not too far away from here. It's kind of noisy. Hopefully you can hear me okay. It's also super humid in here. So it's like a 40-mile-an-hour wind, but it's like ridiculous humidity for us. So it's hot in here. And what I'm going to do, you kind of feel for it, get a feel for it by hand, right? But then you want to run a straight edge right across sort of your bell housing, and then see where you're at. Maybe a good way to do it is probably, we got the 4 holes. I don't know that you can see them. Basically there's one here and one here that are of course going to be straight across 180, and then 90 degrees from that, sort of concealed by the wiring. You have 4 of them. That's for our flex plate, right? But it gives us a good point of reference. We want to use that center hub, and then we want to use those and measure the depth of the torque converter, because that should be fully installed. Now, it could have jostled forward a little bit, I don't know, but we're going to go with that as our baseline. Ultimately, what would happen if we pull that, take the seal out, drive this seal in, put that back in, and don't have the torque converter seated all the way back? It's going to be a situation where it's going to be sitting forward when we try to put the block in and mate it to the transmission. It's never going to happen. So we want to get a baseline, replicate that when we have everything replaced and reinstalled, and then if it's an issue at that point in time, then we cross that bridge when we get to it, basically. So gonna hop in there, pull that. It's probably easier for me to explain it from here, plus it's way more comfortable, not gonna lie. So kind of gives you an idea of what I'm gonna do. I will sort of attempt to show you what I'm measuring, but that gives you a rough idea. And then basically we just kind of should be able to pull straight out when we go to install it. Because of all the shafts and multiple things going on, we'll probably have to clock it and shimmy it as we drive it back in. If that doesn't make sense, hopefully I'll be able to record it again. It's kind of hard, like when I can't get a tripod in and it's a one-man deal. I need like both hands for that, and you know, I'm just trying to explain it as best I can without you visually seeing it in case we can't. But it's not leaking or anything, but if we put the 408 in, got the truck running, dialed it in, we're cruising, getting our first tank of gas, drove it to work for 2 days, was super happy, and then we realized there was a puddle under it from a transmission leak, it would probably be this, and that would really, really suck. If we had an overhead lift, it wouldn't be that bad, because I could just drop the tranny. But for us to get the transmission out, it's pretty involved from the ground up, you know. So we're gonna play it safe, replace this, see what happens. So wish me luck. We're gonna hop in there, and I'll try to remember to throw my detail supplies in as well. Alright, so now I've got a fan running too. I've been down in the abyss. I've shot some cleaner even though I said I wasn't going to. Torque converter, I was attempting to measure it. I've got a really long square there. I couldn't reach my small square that fell this way. And I realized I also forgot to like pick tools or something to extract the seal with. So as I was climbing out, you know, we had originally, like, this is ready to go. Okay, our core support. And the problem is I use that like as a structural piece to scale in and out of the engine bay. And I'm thinking to myself like, okay, we got the gantry crane now, this thing's staying put. What do? We just need to, you know, adjust. So I went, if you bag and tag everything like I do, passenger core support, you can see we've got a couple of bolts in there. You can't really see them, now you can. And there were 3. And there's 2 that are going to, of course, go back there. Like you can see the bosses for them. And then 1 here where there's the bare metal. This says top. That's my way of telling me that this is the top. These would not be the top, but this is the top. So actually those bolts would go here. But to me, this is the top. These would be the front. There's 2. This differentiates them. I'm going to go to town. I thought it looked like 1/2 inch. It's apparently 13 millimeter. So we're going to go ahead and drive this thing home on both sides, so this will at least be somewhat structural once more. And if I want to take it out later, I will. But for now, I'm just going to button this thing back down so I can scale in and out easier. We'll get back down there. I'll get my little Starrett ruler. The tape, it's too close quarters. It's looking like it's not that big of a distance to the hub. So we're going to take a couple measurements, get them documented, and we'll be right back in just a second. Alright, 232/40. That's a very precise measurement because we use the depth. And I've got to set this somewhere down safely. Okay, so this is just one of those things. It's way better to do this without filming, but I've got the long combination square in here, and if I were to square this up, if you're thinking like, whoa, there's no way, you know, that was 232/40 across the bell housing, right? Well, you would be correct, and this is just not good for filming. But basically, in this abyss that I'm stuck in with no airflow and high humidity, coming in and trying to do this is quite difficult, right? Because this is not centered. You've got to hold things, and I cannot do that without a second hand, which is occupied by the camera. So what I did is I held the long square, across the bell housing and set the end of the depth there. So coming in, that's how we had 232/40. Okay. I've already determined there's absolutely no way that I'm able as a solo guy to get you the accurate measurement on camera and show you how to do it. But I'm going to tell you how to do it. It's basically, you want to be flush across the bell housing. Again, that's a machine surface, should be symmetrical, right? You're going to have this A to B, and then that little gap right there is what we want to measure. If you want to overkill it, also measure to your flex plate, converter bolts. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna just get it. I'm gonna tell you what I have. You may vary. It's gonna be individual applications. You might have a different converter, an aftermarket converter. Your transmission might be different. But for me, with what this truck has from the factory, this is what it is. Yours should be, regardless of what's been done to it, extremely close to what I'm going to tell you. But again, you will want to take your own measurement, and I pray that you're doing this on a day that's not this humid, because this is a nightmare. So I'm gonna get the numbers and get this thing off so I can get out of here. All right, this is extremely awkward and painful, but going as best I can side to side and trying to show you what you need to know. Where my thumb is, that's 1. So coming in, the longest line is 3/4. The longest after that is 1/2. So the 1/4 is before that, kind of where you have the square in the corner. So we're basically gonna be right in front of that mark, if that makes any sense. So 4/16 or 1/4, 5/16 to 3/8 is kind of gonna be our sweet spot. That's about as long as I can hold that. And my back hurts from doing that. The camera strap's all tangled. This is just a nightmare trying to film, but it's not that difficult. So we just want to remember 5/16, 3/8, somewhere in that range is going to be our sweet spot. Let's pull the converter out. Again, when you do this, get your fingers in on the side and the top and kind of feel around for references. That may be more helpful to some of you. Pay attention also just to the depth at the bottom. That's another easy way to do it. In fact, I might take that measurement. But right now, I got to set the camera down so I can get these squares without falling. It's just cramping my hand up really bad. Alright, so that pulled out really easy. The difficult thing is there's nowhere to put it. So I don't have anyone to hand it to. There's nowhere level in this engine bay. And we can't turn it over because there's transmission fluid in it. So first thing you want to do is get that to safety. Don't have it there. Don't have it anywhere where crud's going to fall in it. You don't want debris in the converter. That is our seal though. And I have to say it actually looks pretty good. But I guess we'll go ahead and pull it. So I'll get to work on that. And then this, it's just where the freeze plugs failed and the coolant ran down. Otherwise this would be like in really nice condition still for 50,000+ miles. So with that said, I'm gonna get the converter to safety, probably clean this up, then pull the seal, drive the new seal, and see what we can do with that. Alright, so it's cooled off a little bit, but got the transmission cleaned up a little. I'll probably go back and hit it again after we do the seal. Just use some degreaser there. Again, pretty dadgum mint, I must say. If we didn't have that, you know, the coolant leak down in, we wouldn't have had really much of anything to contend with. But, gonna try now to pull the seal out. And what we're gonna have to do is actually, I guess, just get in there. I've got my little Stavilla pick tools. We'll try that, see if we can get it out, and then we will go about trying to drive the new one in. Invited some friends over. Luckily, this guy did it. So, I was using that little Gador chisel trying to come in at the top side. Typically, on a seal like this, I would probably try to shoot self-tapping screws into the landing right here. Obviously, you don't want to drill into the case of the transmission. So here, number one, I don't think I had anything that small here, and number two, I don't want to have to, you know, like this is just the seal. I'm not doing anything else to it. So, grab the smallest Wera chisel driver. This one had actually never been whaled on. It was usually the bigger sizes. This little Picard hammer fit nicely. Got it driven right in. I just used the chisel to get the lip down. That way I was able to kind of access this landing. And it looks like we're ready to pop her out. Simple, see? So, the seal is removed. That is the great news for us. Now, in terms of driving this bad boy in, I do not have, I'm going to try to keep this upright so I don't spill a ton of stuff, but I don't have anything, like not even a socket. We'd have to machine out like a 3/4 drive socket to clear all this shaft action, right? So what I'm thinking I'm going to do is clean this up, get that seal seated, and then I will probably just use drift pins to drive it in. I've got a couple different sizes. This one here. Again, I don't have seal drivers for transmissions in this instance. So probably most of the time when you pull this, you want to just totally overhaul the transmission and then it's not an issue. In this case, you've got a lot of important stuff to work around, so you want to be real careful. Doesn't look like we galled the surface up any. And again, I'm just gonna, if you see a little bit of red down there, that's trans fluid, so we're gonna get that cleaned up. But I will do that, start tapping this sucker in, and we'll see how it goes. Alright, so apologies, I've got another battery charger going, but the fan just helps so much. Can't hear it over the battery charger, so. That said, going to run a small bead just right there on that outer lip towards the face, if you will. Can't really point to it and show it at the same time. But you know what I mean, kind of the lip, the 90-degree portion right above my thumbnail. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna start slowly, meticulously seating this thing. We're gonna try to apply even pressure from 90-degree points. Then I will utilize not the chisels, but the drift punches, which again, you sort of see right there, flat, blunt surfaces. We don't want to pierce this thing. We want to just push it in. That's what I'm going for. So I will be working on that, and then we should have this thing wrapped up. Again, way easier to do this with a transmission out of the vehicle, but sometimes you run into situations, and this is what we're doing, so let's get back to it. Alright, my hands are absolutely filthy. I don't even like touching the camera, but the seal is slipped into position. We're now literally just going to start tapping it in with the drift punches. Got one here I can kind of show you again. Don't use a chisel, use something with a blunt, flat surface on it. And it's going to be a slow process, but that's kind of what we have to do in this case. So I'm going to try to wipe the silicone off the camera and get to work. Batteries are charging. Must mean I have some time to work. So if we come over, we left off. Crisis situation, basically, but you don't know about that. What happened? We're down here in the engine bay. Very uncomfortable. Finally, I parked myself sitting down on the, guess what we call the K-member there. And spoiler alert, the distance between your butt and your head and the cowl, your butt and your head is going to be greater than that distance, right? So you basically have to hunch over, bend forward, get your head tucked under where you see that weather stripping, and go to town. Now, pulling the seal worked great. Little Picard Black Giant, and maybe that Wera might have been, I think it was a smaller one. Yeah, this guy right here. Seal came out just fine. Seal looked great. But again, at the advice of the machine shop, which I assume knows better than me, went ahead and replaced it, or am in the process of replacing it. The seal they gave me would have fit fine, but RTV'd around it like they suggested. Nightmare situation. Alright, I'm gonna just go out on a limb and assume that 99% of the time that the front seals are replaced, it's likely done with the transmission A out of the vehicle and B most likely with the front pump removed. What that means is we eliminate this fancy looking spline stepped shaft, right? Your input shaft. That, if you can't tell, it sticks out 3.5 inches, okay? The seal itself, I've got a lot of stuff that would kind of fit on it, you know, and you'd be able to just hit it from the backside and drive it in. I don't have anything that I can do that with 3.5 inches of a very important, might I add, input shaft coming out. So therein lies the problem. You can see some drift pins down there. That's what I was using to kind of like try and stab it. And I'd get it about 90 to 95%. And that last 5%, it would just pop every single time. We went through like 2 cycles of RTV. Just not fun at all. For the sake of the video, we'll probably, I don't even know if I recorded it because it's hard to, you can't like hold the seal like this, you know, kind of wedging it in, get a punch in the other hand, a hammer, kind of swinging around loosely. Just doesn't work well. So that's where we left off. And the seal, I think, would be okay, but there's one part, probably when I got a little ticked off and I hit it a little hard and it kind of dimpled it. I don't want to take any chances. So if we jump out of the truck, across the 408, over to the table here, we've got some stuff from NAPA, second day air, or next day delivery that came the second day. I'm not sure how that works, but I'm not going to complain because they actually had this in stock. This is kind of a pain to find. If we look at the part number here, in case you get in the same boat or want to be in the same boat, God bless your soul, 18452 front pump seal. Okay, these actually look pretty nice. If you're wondering why there's 3, number 1, machine shop gave me one, so you know, in the event that they need one back, because apparently they're out of them now. 2, if I mess this up, all right, like let's say I trash this seal, I've got a backup and I don't have to wait 1 or 2 days again. All right, so that's my logic. And don't hold me to this, I honestly don't know for sure, but I'm thinking that this would interchange with all my 727s, but I could be wrong. I don't know for sure. So if that's the case, I mean, boom, we're covered. If not, I can screw this up a couple more times before we get it right and we're still home free. This one actually looks a little bit more color schemed like the factory one. Again, I have those in a bag in the Challenger because I had them at work to try and find this. Which, if you're thinking like red rag, that's really, really great, buddy. Well, nope. What this is a driver of some sort that we have. It hasn't been used in a very long time. But the issue you have again is there's 3.5 inches of input shaft that you have to clear. So this is basically just a pipe, and then this side has got a machined collar, which obviously, if you can't tell, that is exceeding the diameter of our input shaft. And then we flip her around. As you can see, this is longer than 3.5 inches. And we don't screw around at work, okay? So right here, the flat surface, what do we do there? This is going to be what you hammer, and it's going to drive the seal. The seal, as fate would have it, set this down on my expensive woodwork surface. We're going to be basically doing this, right? So It's not a perfect fit. You know, I could have come in and machined something out. It's kind of a one-off deal. And like I said, my inability to find this item online, I just thought, you know what? It's a seal driver. What's it going to be, like 40 bucks or something? Let's just get it. You know, I'll use it. It's not something you're going to use very often at all. But when you have multitudes, you know, multiples of the same transmission or something, then it's like, yeah, well, you know, it's not that bad. You don't have to go bum the part off someone. I could not find anything, which again leads me to believe this is probably done very easily with the input shaft out by the vast majority of situations when this is installed. So this is the type of thing, when it goes out, it's annoying and it leaves puddles, and people that have it there and take it to shop after shop, they probably don't do a good job installing it because it would be a pain in the butt. And they might just RTV it, you know, and it might look really good up top, but then on the bottom it's kicked out like that, so you still have transmission fluid pouring out. And then people just sell the vehicles and move on. You know, that's honestly what happens. Usually minor little things like that. So hopefully this overkill seal driver is going to work well for me. It's now a seal driver. And if it does, we'll have it pressed in no time, and this really isn't an issue at all. But the issue for you, if you're tackling this with a transmission in your truck, this doesn't have to be that you're replacing the motor. This could literally be you got a 200,000 mile 5.2 Magnum in your truck and the front seal is leaking. And if you get to this point, I would think you would probably drop the transmission, you know. But if everything on it is fine, you know, it's working good, shifting good, no issues anywhere but the front seal, you'd still have to do this. It would just be much easier because the transmission would be out and either on the floor or a workbench of some sort. But right here, something along these lines would be a lifesaver, because you would still have a terrible, terrible time trying to get that installed flush with the input shaft there. So this is overkill, but it's gonna hopefully work. So I'm gonna get a fan on. It is humid as all get out in here, and see if we can make this happen. Alright, so here I am back in a familiar spot. Spent way too much time here last Sunday. I've got the homebrew driver, which again is going to clear the input shaft. You want to be extremely careful when you do this. Again, my advice is just get the transmission out of the truck. But we're not going to do that. We're going to do it this way because we've wasted so much time already. So the seal is in place. It is RTV'd. My nephew handed me this so I didn't have to crawl back out of the truck and grab it. I'm just going to start driving. I can't film and drive at the same time, so I'll be back hopefully with a seal installed. You know the old adage, have the right tool for the job? Yeah, that saved a whole lot of time. Now, another interesting note, I was in here with this little Picard, and nice of a hammer as it is, you need more mass to get the job done. So luckily my nephew was here and he was able to extract. I pointed the drawer out to him from inside the confines of the truck, spotted it on his first try, brought me the big old S-wing over here, got that sucker drove in. I will tell you, don't make the mistake I made. Did not anticipate this being that loud. Might have something to do with the repercussion effects of that driver, but it was pretty dang loud. And wear ear protection, don't be like me. So nephew sought safety on the other side of the shop, and I was in here, drove it home. What we're gonna have to do now is slide that torque converter back out, get it back in place, and attempt to get it seated, again making note of the measurements that we took last time so we ensure that it's fully seated. Thereby when we drop the motor in, we shouldn't have any issues. So I'm gonna clean out all the drift punches, get some of the RTV from the failed attempts from last week out of the way, and then we'll attempt to get the torque converter stabbed back in. Alright, so here we are. This actually went fairly well aside from a little bit of ATF coming out. I'm not sure how because I kept it upright, but anyway, I'll try to get that sopped up because I meticulously cleaned it. I think you can see it down there. That said, when we did our two squares, the Popular Mechanics one, which I don't have any idea where I've set it. Oh, it's over here. It was two squares, basically the corner and then two. Yeah, that's the easiest way to count that because it's kind of blurry. Got that measurement at center. It was 1.25 inches from the teeth to the edge of the transmission tunnel. I've replicated that, used the exact same Stanley. That's a little easier for me to film and showcase. So we know if the torque converter is not fully seated or not in the right spot, it's pretty dadgum close, and that's gonna have to be good enough till we find out otherwise. So With that said, we've replaced the seal super easy with the correct tool, which was down here, but my nephew conveniently took away from me. He also was the hero a minute ago, got the fan going, if you hear that in the background. But yeah, the seal is in, the torque converter's in, and I did that in like a tenth of the time I attempted to drive that in with a drift punch. So my advice, either pull your transmission or get a dedicated seal driver, make one if you have to. You'll ultimately save yourself time. But yeah, this again was recommended by the machine shop to do. Again, I try to defer to people who know more than me when possible. And the last thing you want is to put your new motor in and then have a transmission leak and find out it's from your front seal on something that you were told you should replace anyway. So a little staying ahead of the game, I guess is what you would call that. Nonetheless, we got this done. Mother and sister are out supposedly grabbing Chipotle. Should be back here pretty soon, so we got that to look forward to. Might drop the motor in, who knows really. But the main thing is this is complete. Hopefully it helped you out. Hopefully you learned a little something. You got any insights or advice for anyone else going through this, attempting to make it happen while the transmission's in the truck. Feel free to leave your comment with your experiences. That said, I hope you enjoyed. If so, leave a like, leave a comment, let us know your thoughts. Subscribe if you have not. Jump your truck across the creek. Go back, do it again. Maybe, just maybe, YouTube will let you know when we have new videos. Otherwise, Saturday, typically tool stuff. Wednesday is typically automotive-based content, so be sure to look out for that. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all three you can find us at Lone Star Mopars. And as always,
have fun in the shop.
All right, we'll catch y'all next time.